Hey kids, welcome to another Glen YAPS. We're in my screaming mosquito recording studio. Just testing out some new gear the band has added to the arsenal. We're trying to go fully digital without an analog board like this. Even though this is my recording console, we use a similar one live, only it's a bit smaller. Digital means we have this main brain unit here. All the cables plug into it from the drums, guitar, vocals, and then go out to speakers that have built-in power amps. So there's no power amps like the old days. Like down in here. There's none of that. Power amps are in each speaker, and you're trying to eliminate the mixer and convert it into this iPad type of system here, where everything is controlled by software. Now, it's tricky. I'm kind of one for the old school because it's pretty quick to change. Like if I'm drumming and I'm using in-ear monitors, and I have my own mixer right now that's analog. It's like a baby version of this, and it's, you know, maybe a foot wide, foot square maybe. I can just grab the slider. If something's too loud or too soft or whatever, I can just go really quick, blah blah blah, and my adjustment's done. The electronic, somewhat like that. As you can see, we can grab a slider and move it to wherever. But if you got to EQ things, you got to go through multiple screens. Like if you were to want to do the noise gate and constantly adjust. So that takes time, and what I'm trying to do is figure out the fastest way to do things. Now I have a fully digital mixer of my own, which is this one, the QSC Touch Mix. This has a touch screen when it's on that looks like this, similar, but you do have knobs, buttons, and a little more control. Whereas this one, you have zero control with buttons. It's fully digital. So what we're trying to do is find the easiest way to edit things. Now, all these programs have a scene display, and each scene you can design it the way you want. Like I want, you know, like I want drums in the first channels of 16, and then over on this end I want vocals for my recording, and 2 guitars and a bass. I want them separate from the drums. You can design all these scenes to lay out the mixture the way you want it. You can lay it out to each channel having certain effects. Just keep in mind when it's digital, it's a computer, so the more things you plug into it or use, the more it eats on the resources. So that's where we're kind of at for some of this. Also, what we want to do is, on the local basis, is do a mix in each bar, and each time we play there, we could have a scene saved for whichever bar we played in. And what that does is give us a starting point that's a lot better than just starting everything from zero. We also have a fill-in musician bass player that comes in place of our regular bass player. We can program an extra channel just for him, for his bass sound and his vocal, because he's different than the bass player we normally have. So you don't have to keep adjusting. You kind of get a ballpark every time you turn it on, and you say, well, if you're playing at Reggie's bar, you click the button for the scene of Reggie's bar, and boof, everything comes up and everything's laid out and EQ'd and done like the mix you originally did in there that you liked. So that's going to take a little bit of time. Then when you're doing sound for a new band, you want a clean scene, but you might want to have some things laid out, like maybe 4 or 5 vocals automatically, obviously 2 guitars, a keyboard, and the drums already in the scene, and then you can just add a channel as you go. So I'm not quite sure the limits of this new system that we've added to Soundcheck's sound arsenal. It's 18 channels on the, it looks like 18 channels on the actual brain itself, plus 2 more that are, those 18 are low impedance, and it looks like 2 more that are 1/4 inch, which I would imagine are for if you're running a tape deck, or not a tape deck, but a MP3 player, whatever. So as you can see, I'm just going to use a test mic here. Check, 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 check. So check, check. So we've got the volume down here. Check, 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 check. 1 2. Check 1 2. So it comes up. You can see the signals. Check 1 2. Check, check, check. That's a master. Check. So you have buses. Buses is basically used for monitors. So we have, looks like 6 buses in this system, and there's 6 outputs on the front, on the very bottom, right there. And what you can do is 6 people on stage, if they want it, can have their own monitor mix, and within that monitor mix you can have anything you want. You can have your vocals, you can have your own guitar, you can have a kick drum in there, or a snare, or, you know. And each person has their own little heaven. What the system is supposed to allow for is you can connect to it via Wi-Fi, and each person can, with an iPad on stage or even their phone, can control their own mix. There's no wires. So that's a good thing. Problem is interference. I've been researching this unit, and the Wi-Fi unit is there's a hot and cold system, so we might have to go with an external router, dual band, just to solidify no signal interference. And you want to make sure that people with phones in the bar, you know, if there was ended up being a Wi-Fi outage, sometimes priority things take over, so you don't want other people grabbing the signal with their phones, and you get kicked out and you can't operate your mixer. There's no way for them to operate the mixer because obviously they don't have the software. But the weird thing about this is if somebody's in a building next to you with the same software, and you don't have things done correctly, they can actually operate your mixer if they find it on the Wi-Fi network. But anyways, that's just down the road kind of stuff, and for the most part it's working great here. But the internal unit has a range, and that's why, like the internal router, so that's why I'm kind of probably thinking of going to the dual band external router. But we'll see. We're going to experiment. So far, it's working great. I'm not crazy about this particular scene here because I've researched this online and there's different scenes. Plus, it's an iPad. I'm used to a Windows-based one, so I'm kind of learning Mac again. But it's pretty straightforward. All these digital mixers kind of run the same. Routing the effects into your own channel takes a little bit of time. Some people want delay, reverb, drums. You might want a noise gate along with reverb, and you definitely have your EQs across the whole system here. Like if you wanted to do EQ, just hit EQ. Well, let's try that again. There's your EQ, and you can just move it around. I mean, there's dials too if you want to use it, but I've always found, even in my recording studio here, these kind of EQs are really quick. Now, obviously, I'm still trying to figure out, because you don't want this big hump of EQ here. You want to be able to adjust that, and I'm not quite sure. Like, it should be this width button here, but it's not highlighted, and I'm not sure why. It might be... Oh, let's try that. There we go. So I'm still learning this. So then you get your width. So, like if you're doing a drum set, you know, you don't want wide signals because it'll suck out a lot of stuff. So if the cymbals are harsh or whatever, you kind of bring them down a little tweak like that. Same with your snare drum. Snare drum around 1000K. You can see there's a 1K margin marked right there. But you don't want to take that much snare drum out for the honkiness on a snare drum, so you kind of narrow it so it's more like a sliver like this, and then you can dial it in. I'm holding the camera trying to do this, so check, check, 1, 2. I'm going to try and talk. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. See, it's getting muddier now because you're sucking all the high end out. Check, 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 check. See, there's the frequency there. Check, 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 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check. Check, check, 1, 2. I'm still not crazy about check, check, 1, 2. Check. I can't seem to get this to function the way I want it to sensitivity. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, 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 1, 2. Check, check. Oh, something like cuckoo here. Let's go back. Check, check. Check, check, 1, 2. There we go. I must have hit a button. That's the thing. It's so sensitive that check, 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 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. There we get some high end in there. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Want to add some body? Just check, 1, 2. Check. That's a little bit honky. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, check. Anyways, you get the idea. Yeah, so, I mean, EQing all depends on the sensitivity of this software. I mean, it's going to take some practice. So what we have is we've got kick, snare, tom-tom. I usually just play 4-piece live and 2 overheads because my cymbals are really close to the drums, so Even the overheads, I just use one. I play the drum set pretty tight. Then we've got 4 vocals our band uses. I think, yeah, 4 vocals. Then we have Terry's guitar, our lead singer's guitar, and our bass player. Leaving 2 channels open, which will probably be eaten up by our fill-in bass player and vocal. And I say you can still go with a few more channels there. So the cool thing about this too is down here, hard to see, but there's 4 little boxes on each channel, and you can set up to 4 ways of muting these channels. So what I'm going to do is, if I mark the first square on say the vocals, I can actually mute just the vocals with one single mute button. And this screen layout is different than the one I was researching online. So I got to figure that out, because there was a way to go. If it was muted on the first square on all the vocals, you could set the first square on a mute button over here. And I just can't remember how it's done, because this scene is totally different than the one that I was researching online. So I could say 4 boxes. So then you could go with the second box being all drums. So if you wanted to mute the entire drum set, you would just hit one mute button, and all the drum set that was accented with the second box right here, highlighted. I don't know if I can do it without screwing it up. You know, that's muting the whole thing there. Yeah, I can't exactly remember how to do it. Yeah, it's not doing it that way, so I'll have to figure that out. And then you could do all the stringed instruments on the third box, right? And then you could basically have the 4th square checked to mute the entire board just with one mute button. So, because right now, if I go main, if I mute it, it's not muting, it's just muting the main output and not the channels itself, which is still basically the same thing, but it's nice to be able to mute just vocals. If you got a feedback issue, you know, to just in a pinch, just mute the vocals, because usually your feedback's either going to be in a kick drum, vocals, you know, it's usually vocals. Anyway, so I'm still figuring this out. Then you got effects loops for how much reverb that you want in. I'm not sure why the word solo is on here. Usually solo is when you're setting up the gain structure. So, I mean, it should be called effects when I hit effects. Check. Check, check. Check, 1, 2. Check. 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 Check, check. Check. Check, 1, 2. And for some reason, check. There's still reverb. Check, check. So something's not patched right. Like I say, solo is weird. It should be effects, because we're talking effects 1. Unless, let's see, because this would actually bring down the effects. Check, 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 1, 2. Okay, there we go. So I would have put reverb in the first effects, because that's the most common effect, but this one is actually in the second one. Check, 1, 2. So there you go. Check, 1, 2. And you add as much feedback as you want. Not feedback, I should say reverb. Yeah, so it's not unlike a regular mixer. I personally find it slower, but I'm just getting used to it. And
I'm pretty used to this mixer, but I'm still slow compared to an actual mixer with knobs. It's I understand the convenience. You don't need a mixer this size to bring to a gig. I understand that, but
it's still slower. But I'm not saying I won't get faster at it. So it seems pretty straightforward. I'm just not sure what effect is this in number one, because you want you want on vocals maybe reverb and a slap delay or a little bit of a delay and maybe some compression. Excuse me. And on the drums, maybe some reverb. In later years, I used to love reverb on drums, and then in later years I kind of didn't like it so much. I find some sticking and ghost strokes get lost, but it's all how you set it up. So a little bit of reverb's fine, some compression, and noise gates I kind of frown on, but sometimes it's inevitable. You should have one handy. On a kick drum sometimes, maybe the bigger toms. Usually smaller toms don't have that much problem, but a gate just to grab the out of control low end frequencies that seem to clutter up a mix. So that's the scoop kind of. So that's what Glen is doing right now, and it works pretty good. It's fairly easy. I'm just trying to like I say, just trying to get used to things here. And it has effects, and there's a few effects here in this scene, like a delay in the chorus. Like this seems limited. It's like when I was online, there was like a ton of plugins for this. So it could be that just this scene that either my guitar player put in or his friend put in testing this out, it might appear that that's all we got, but I'm sure there's more. So I'm just EQing the guitars. This is, I'm putting some effects in. That's without. And then some effects. Of course, this is my guitar, not my singer's Taylor guitar, but can definitely add a little bit of brightness to these dead strings. That's too much, just bring it down. I don't like that at all, so my guitar I like a little more. Roll off the bottom ends. This is a guitar, we don't want anything in there in that frequency. And you can add more reverb. That's a bit overkill. That's like a little ambience. Okay, so we've done that. I've done, let's see, we're doing kick drum here. I'm just setting this up for when I try a kick drum, get the EQ in a ballpark, and can definitely move things around. Okay. So I'm going to do that again because I wasn't sure if the camera moved or not. So right now, it's the EQing on this acoustic with dead strings. This is the effect on the guitar. This is without it. Kind of dead. And we'll go, I gotta get used to these things here. Just a nice simple hall reverb is good. Very nice, and like I say, if you need some frequencies, if you need a little more body, you don't need anything here because that gets ugly in there for frequencies. And you can mute the effect. Well, mute the guitar actually that way, and then effects out. And hopefully, I don't see a save button on this, so I'm hoping things work properly. I mean, you can EQ too from the guitar. My guitar is pretty much flat in the middle. Yeah. So that's working not too bad. You've got your mic gain or line gain. You can adjust that just by moving it a smidge. Oof, that doesn't take much to kick that into gear. So just got to be careful. That's got a lot of horsepower. Good. Good for a starting point. I think the gains are probably a bit too high on that. My acoustic has a lot of horsepower, so bring that down just a smidge. Because we got a lot left on the slider. Okay, so dead strings. Okay, so we're going to mute that and shut the power off. And now we're going to set up for bass, which I think is in channel 7. So just got to move that down one of the channels. Just give me a sec. Okay, so let's bring down these levels here for now, and going with the bass, and we'll bring that up just a bit. And we'll go with a little more. There we go. So that gets the gain started. We definitely want some EQing on this. Already kind of set things up. So I like it a little bit brighter. Where the kick drum and bass guitar kind of fight for space, right in there. Oops, that didn't work right. Need the frequencies up in there too much, so I'm just going to go like this. Why is it doing that? I keep hitting my finger on something, and it should be. And we'll widen that out just a bit. A little bit on this. Not quite happy with that. Totally happy with that. Oops, wrong note. I must be hitting one of the buttons with my palm. Getting there. Probably add a little more zing here in the bottom. Just a titch that way. So I don't like these. Anyways, that's kind of a. Gotta take some time to figure that out, get a better sound. My bass player's got a different sound than me. Probably has new strings too. anyways, you get the idea. So we definitely got the bass happening in here. If I wanted effects, we could add effects right here. Reverb. Oops, hold on. Let's go back to main. Sometimes a little bit of reverb is good on bass. Just getting into the yellow a little bit for volume. Let's go back to the effect. Effect number 2. That's heavy reverb. Definitely don't want that. Sometimes I like just a little bit of a slapback reverb. Oops. Why is that not working? Just a little bit in there. That sounds not too bad. Okay, so like I say, it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. And you can always go back to the home screen. I think I've got all the EQing for like the kick drum. You just have to hit on the actual name of each part. And snare drum, probably don't need that much there. And I've just got it roughly where I like to adjust my snare drums. And the toms, yeah, well, that small tom doesn't need that much bottom end there. So we can, once the drum is going through, I can play around with it. The drums are here, so I'm going to try and get a rough mix just through my in-ears. And the floor tom, I like a little bit chunkier, just a little bit there. And vocal-wise, we've got EQ in there. Oops, except for Paul's. That one we're going to roll off on the bottom end. And see, just by going in here, you can knock that off, whatever form you want. You just pick it. If you check that one, it'll make the old pyramid type. But down here, you don't really need a lot of frequencies in the low end for vocals. And you can roll those off. You should be able to steepen this somewhat too. I haven't figured it out because when you go to this setting, it seems to bypass some of those, which is unusual because I know on my EQ in my studio, it's doesn't do that. I'm able to steepen the curve a bit, get a little more parametric on it. Anyway, so it's pretty straightforward. I think for the kick drum, apparently the gates are pretty good on this. Like there's a predefined kick drum gate. I'm not sure I would like a preset on it. I'm not quite sure. That's something we'll have to play around with. I don't use gates too much. I don't really like them. I'd rather try and get to the issue with an EQ. So all my drum channels are kind of set with a rough EQ. I can't really do too much in a basement except get just a rough in-ear mix. This is where, oops, sorry, gotta adjust this. This is where my board I like, because I can actually do a main headphone mix, a main out front mix. I forgot how many auxiliary sends I can use this, but I can make a separate drum mix go to everybody's monitor if I wanted, with whatever they wanted, with whatever EQing. I'm not sure if this new one does it. Like I say, I'm still playing around with it. Right now it's on the basic scene, so I'd like to see if there are some other scenes that you know, have more options. Like the effects on this, I know it's got tons of effects. I just don't know how to access them yet, but I'll figure that out. Alrighty, thanks for watching.